Hi, welcome back. It's La Princesse des Beaux-Arts, and today I want to share with you a bit about my experience on the stages of spiritual awakening. In case any of y'all are going through this, it can be quite wild in the beginning. So let me first start by setting a little definition. My definition of what a spiritual awakening is a moment in your life. It could happen really at any time. For a lot of people, it's around 28, 29, perhaps later even. And it's a moment where the human being becomes attuned and awakened, perceptive of all the invisible influences, sometimes supernatural, so to speak, that operate through your day-to-day life, the environment, and from the smallest microcosm to the biggest scales of how it unfolds in our reality. So for example, noticing the correlations in what happened in your day-to-day life that from a purely logical, scientific, rational perspective don't have any correlation, but actually can reveal a lot about how things unfold. So perhaps some resulting behaviors from your spiritual awakening could be being able to predict things before they happen, or know things about certain people without having to see the evidence or how things unfold explicitly. So for example, being able to tell how healthy a couple is from their posture or just from seeing them outside, or being able to tell what a person is feeling just by being near them, like experiencing their emotions in your own. A lot of these other things too, perhaps even having dreams that forecast or predict certain outcomes. Just becoming really attuned to the world in a way that makes you feel like you were sleepwalking through life previously. And this often happens also, what can cause this? When you go through something extremely difficult, for example, a breakup, a heartbreak, a big disappointment, some sort of health crisis, but it's not necessary, I think. It can also happen spontaneously at a certain point in your life when you're ready. And in the beginning, my experience with this stage was when I was about 23, around the time I was finishing up art school, I had a really bad relationship experience that really brought out a lot of the negativity I needed to clear from my past and from my subconscious. And I'm really grateful for that. So for a long time, I wasn't facing those issues, and all of the emotions you repress, they sort of get worse and worse if you don't face them, right? But it's a common approach for people in the modern day to ignore and devalue these so-called negative emotions like anger, sadness, resentment, etc. And as a result, you can see it in mental health crises or physical ailments, because that's sort of the last step to how this unfolds. Now, last year, around springtime, this really negative experience from my childhood started replaying in my head on a negative thought spiral, which was really freakish. How spiritual attacks or possessions work is sometimes when you're in a weak space. For example, you have a physical illness or you're experiencing some hardship in your life. Oftentimes, these negative energies can attack you because your aura is so damaged or collapsed, so it's quite permeable. So these negative forces can plant negative thought loops to get a foot through the door and infiltrate your space, your mind, your physical and energetic body. So that happened to me. And for several days, I could not leave the house because I was just crying nonstop, thinking about this thing that happened when I was 5 years old. And that hadn't happened to me before. Now, when something like this happens, it can be quite freaky, And you could be totally thinking, why is this happening? This doesn't make sense. I was totally fine before. But in reality, it was always there, just waiting to come out. So afterwards, synchronistic things really tend to pop up when you're ready for this sort of awakening. So I remember when I first moved to London, just 2 weeks before, I hadn't found an apartment. The one I was really fixed on, someone else took it. And, I just thought, I'm not going to think about this. And then, just a few days before, I found the perfect place for me. And I actually have so many similarities and resonate so much with the landlady and the owner. So lots of these synchronistic things happen. Another one that was pivotal for me was I like to walk in the mornings and get fresh air and sunlight. So on my walks, I always pass by this Reiki healer and hair salon in the mornings. It's like just a few meters down my street. And the sign outside the salon door caught my attention. It said, Reiki healer, 5-star review, treat well, whatever. But there was something I felt viscerally drawing me to that place, but I didn't go for several months until I caught into that negative spiral where I was crying at home, staying in bed, and just thinking about this really horrible thing from my past. And I didn't know how to deal with it. And then something inside of me told me, go visit that healer or Reiki practitioner. And I'm telling you, a lot of the times, the things that are meant to happen in your life, you will be drawn to them, and it will happen when you're ready and when it's meant to be. So I decided that I needed to take care of myself, to do some self-care. So I got a massage. I booked a massage with her. And this lady, she is really gifted. Like some people, they just have this ability to channel, communicate with spirits, divine energy, whatnot. So what she does is she can hear downloads or messages from angels when she practices her energy healing on patients. And she's very attuned to each and every one of them. And she told me that my spirit, coming from her angels, was a lot like a little bird that couldn't fly because it was like really bogged down and couldn't fly up in the sky, and very sad. And later on, she did this healing practice with me that involved revising the past. And within a 2-hour session, I resolved that bit of trauma that was like buried inside of me. I took it out, and it was really painful, and I cried a lot. Which another thing is, when you cry, that's actually a sign of negativity leaving your body, leaving your spirit, which is actually really good. So that's why it's not really healthy to hate on yourself or stifle yourself from crying and expressing those emotions. It's actually a really good sign of clearing karma and clearing baggage. So what shocked me was how overnight I cleared up so much of the things that were keeping me stuck in life. And ever since that session with her, something incredible happened, which was I began to feel out these sorts of energetic and subconscious dynamics, or programming, as some of you might call it, in strangers on the street, in people that I would just see or witness in my day-to-day life. I could feel out and discern sort of what they've experienced through life and what they're currently feeling and what their hopes and dreams and fears and aspirations are, which is really wild. And because in that early stage of awakening, I'm going to warn you right now, when you don't know how to deal with all of this information flooding in that once used to be sort of invisible and just like curtained off, it can be extremely overwhelming. That's why people, when they first awake, they might not have spiritual and mental protection, which leads to burnout and overwhelm and psychosis even for some people. So for me, I remember in the beginning, I thought this was extraordinary. I thought this was amazing. Like, I could feel out other people's emotions. But then I was overwhelmed because I kept on taking on other people's emotions and karmic baggage, all of that. So I had to stay in my house again for like a few weeks and really practice setting in a boundary so it would not overwhelm me, so I could use it to my advantage instead of being overwhelmed by all of that. So this would be, I think, like the second stage. Once you go through some sort of deep personal healing that you had to initiate on your own, some sort of deep transformation from a soul level, you'll be able to perceive the flow of energy and these dynamics play out in your environment and the people you know. For example, I can sense out the reasons why some of the people I know are sick from really unique, precise causes that aren't that obvious at first. For example, someone being sick because they have no boundaries. That's how you can get sick easily. Or needing to move to a different home, having a home environment where you can't rest, that can cause inflammation. That can turn into something that needs surgery. A lot of different ways where once you're awakened, you can see how these dynamics unfold in the people you know. And the next part I will warn you right now is you've got to be careful about overreaching and trying to interfere with everything. Now, when I began to see some of these dynamics played out in my life and in the people around me that I care about, I felt compelled, oftentimes, to interfere or intervene. But what I soon realized was there's this rule in spirituality or magic or whatever you want to call this stuff, that you only offer your help if someone seeks it out from you, because that means they are ready to receive whatever you have to offer, whether it's insight or spiritual empowerment. Because otherwise, if you are giving to someone who is not ready to listen and receive what you have to tell them, it's actually quite damaging. So another part were physical symptoms. When I began to sense out like other people's emotions, I began to have these really strong headaches. And I am someone who rarely, if ever, got headaches throughout my life. So I began to have headaches as if I had this headband right here in the front of my skull, squeezing really, really tight. And sometimes I needed to like sit down just so I wouldn't like fall over. Like headaches like that, they were really wild. And another absolutely insane side effect was electronic devices would break around me or malfunction. This is a really funny story time. Now, I live not too far from the largest brick building in Europe, if you count the UK as Europe, which is the Battersea Power Station. It has 4 massive chimneys and it's full of red brick, and it's a massive towering into the sky. You can see it in West London. And I remembered I wanted to go to the top of the elevator inside one of the towers to see the scenery, just out of curiosity. And there are 2 elevators leading up to the tower. The first elevator, there are 2 sets of them. And within my group, I felt really uncomfortable and I didn't want to go into that elevator. And one of the guides there, he was telling me, just go in the elevator, there's space for you. I saw all of these people squeeze inside and something told me not to go in. And he was annoyed, but he just let me stay to the side and wait for the next group. Would you know it? Within a few minutes, there was a fire alarm that went off in the entire Battersea Power Station. And I heard a lady next to me who worked there say, you know, I've been working here for, I think, 6 months now, and I've never experienced anything like this. If I had taken the elevator before, I would have been stuck up at the very top level near the chimneys, and I would have to have twice the amount of stairs to go down. But not only that, once at the same building, I wanted to go find the bathroom, and something told me to put my hand against the brick wall outside. And I could feel out the flow of energy inside this building. And I was able to tell where the bathrooms were by tuning into how the energy flowed in this building. So I could tell it was down to the right and up one level. I felt some of the energy changing and swirling down in one of the corners. So I thought, that's definitely the bathroom. And would you know it, I walk in and I find the bathroom is there. I didn't search it up on my phone or anything. And other things, card readers, the contactless payments, they stopped working. And I knew that it wasn't with my bank account. I knew that I could always pay for what I needed, but I had to insert my card, or I had to, like, at the post office, I literally joked to the man there, oh yeah, sometimes I break these machines, so I'm gonna just step away a few meters and let it work. I gave my card to the teller. Like, this has happened multiple times. I insert the card or tap it, let them tap it for me, and I walk away by a few meters, and then it works. But it doesn't work. It didn't work when I was standing right next to it. Because when you first awaken, I think something happens in your aura where it gets supercharged and it interferes with electronics. Another thing that I won't get too far into is I definitely believe electronics interfere with the energies, invisible energies of spaces. So that's why, like, something told me in the beginning of last year to throw away my AirPods and to stop putting in headphones all the time. Because what happens, I've noticed looking back now, is that when you always have like earbuds or headphones playing, because like I know it feels really nice to listen to a podcast or music when you're out on a walk or commuting. But one of the issues with this is that you actually block out so much of your senses, your 5 senses and your 6th sense, or any sort of information that might be important from your surroundings. Yeah. So I actually threw my AirPods in the trash a few months into last year, and it was like an intuitive thing telling me, hey, this is distracting you. And I couldn't explain it from a logical standpoint, but I just knew I had to do that. Yeah. So when this happens to you, don't be surprised if electronics start acting all weird around you. The next thing that happened was when I finally learned to protect my energy and not be so affected by all the negativity around me. Because when you're living in a big city, especially like London, a lot of people are stressed, upset, and just like have a lot of negativity around them that they can't really help. Because first of all, there's a lot of population density. There's advertisements trying to steal your energy. There's people always trying to like make money off of you. There's like your work routine going through public transport. A lot of it is very draining, to be fully honest. And I think most people aren't aware enough on how to protect themselves or just meditate and clear that negativity. So it sort of just accumulates, right? And you can feel it in the aura of a city. So what happened with me was, once I learned to protect myself from that negativity in my environment, from taking on all of that and being like a sponge, I learned to sort of project my energy or channel energy to change my environment. So one example of this was I did this experiment where outside of a station, I heard a man like really upset, talking on the phone, borderline screaming because the person he was supposed to meet was running late. And I thought, I'm gonna do something about this. So I just tuned in to a very peaceful feeling state, and I approached and stood near him, like within his proximity. And because it was a busy weekend, I think it didn't seem abnormal, like there were a lot of people there. So I stood near him, and within a few seconds he calmed down, and he said something along the lines like, oh, so there was this misunderstanding. Okay, I get it now. Okay, we're cool. That happened just like this. Everyone has this ability to channel energy and take on other people's energy. It's not like a special gift. Every human being has this. And when you become attuned and aware of it and cultivate this ability to control it, you become so powerful. Other things that started happening with me was a lot of little kids, they just like stare at me or run up to me, which I absolutely love. Same with animals. Like I can be walking in the park and like a little dog will just jump on me, and then the old like British dude afterwards will be like, oh, she really likes you, whatever. But it really happens, and it's actually magical. Even things like butterflies or bees or ladybugs swarming you, that's pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty cool. But it's also quite painful in the beginning to sense out all of the negativity in the world and understand and how important compassion and unconditional love is, and just how much the world would transform and be better if everyone could understand how important that is, instead of just constantly thinking of me and taking, which consequently leads to more lack and more conflict. So beyond these stages of like electronics, headaches, personal healing and transformation, kids, nature, whatever, you begin to understand the consciousness of objects, plants, animals, cosmic beings, or planetary influences on you. And that led to like me delving into astrology and other stuff, but that's for another day. You begin to also like sense out what parts of your home are emitting positive and negative energy, and changing your environment consequently. So another stage of spiritual awakening would be like changing how you look, changing the clothes you wear, even the way you speak, your choice of words, and how you choose to interact with other people. So becoming more discerning with even your food or the people you interact with, because you like, from this higher consciousness level, you can feel out what's good for you and what's not. And if you're gonna do something that's indulgent, you're gonna it's gonna be a conscious decision. It's not gonna be just a sort of unconscious decision, like I'm gonna eat something that's maybe not the healthiest for me. Okay, I know this is gonna be the effects, and I'm just gonna say, okay, I'm gonna do it. But you're no longer able to use the excuse of not knowing any better, because your sense of perception opens up so much wider. Oh my god, look at this bird, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Okay. Yeah. So that sums up pretty much the stages of spiritual awakening that I experienced. And it can be a wild ride between pain and bliss, and it's just quite a roller coaster, absolutely. And some other advice, it could happen during a midlife crisis. It could happen spontaneously when you've been having like a pretty predictable routine of a life, until all of a sudden like this happens to you, or like it awakes from within you. And it could also happen during your Saturn returns. So around like 28 years old. For me, it was when I was like 24. Yeah, I dyed my hair green right before, and I knew that I guess I needed that harmonizing, healing energy. Yeah, so let me know if you have any experiences with this. And I'm so excited to update you all with my journey, learning to be a spiritual healer as a young artist, and just traveling, adventuring around the world. Okay, that's it for today. You can find me on Instagram under La Princesse des Beaux-Arts, or book a call on my website. This is really fun, and I want this to help y'all as much as possible. Okay, ciao, bye, au revoir.